Officer Noah Granger bought a rundown house at a bank auction for just $20, just to give his retired K-9 Bravo a place to run free. But the moment he stepped through the creaking doorway, Bravo growled low, and from the attic above came a soft thump. What Noah found next would change his life forever. A little boy, no older than 8, crawled out from the shadows, eyes hollow, voice trembling as he said, "Please, don't make me go back to him." Clutched in the boy's dirty hands was a birth certificate, stained and torn, with a mother's name crossed out and a father's name that made Noah's blood run cold. It wasn't his name. It was the man who sold him the house. What had happened in this house? Why was this boy hiding like a hunted animal? And what secret had the seller tried to bury for good? What happens next will make you cry and believe in second chances again. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. Winter came early to Sheridan, Wyoming, painting the sky in a heavy grays and cloaking the distant hills with a quiet that only snow can bring. The wind carried an edge sharp enough to sting through gloves, and most folks had already tucked themselves away indoors, leaving Main Street ghostly beneath the old courthouse clock tower. Officer Noah Granger, 36, stepped from his patrol SUV and adjusted the collar of his thick Navy sheriff's jacket. His breath rose in white wisps as he surveyed the old courthouse steps, where a small crowd had gathered for the foreclosure auction. He wasn't there on duty, not anymore. This time, he was just a man and his dog, looking for something neither could name. Beside him, his partner and best friend, Bravo, a 5-year-old sable and black German shepherd, waited with ears pricked and eyes sharp. Once one of the top K-9s in the county narcotics unit, Bravo had a nose for more than drugs. He sensed tension, deceit, danger, and he was sensing something now. When the auctioneer called out, "Lot number 47, abandoned house on Little Elk Ridge, opening bid, $20, the crowd chuckled. Noah raised his hand. The auctioneer blinked once. Sold. Inside the courthouse, Noah met the seller, a wiry, jittery man named Mr. Ellis Delmar, around 55, with thinning hair, a crooked tie, and the type of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He wore an old tan overcoat, stained at the cuffs, and tapped his pen nervously as he signed over the deed. "You sure you want it?" Delmar asked, voice low. "Place has been empty a long time. Bad roof, worse wiring." Noah replied simply, "I'm not afraid of a little work." Delmar gave a tight smile. "Well, you bought it. No take-backs." Bravo, seated quietly at Noah's side, growled. Delmar stiffened. "Your mutt don't like me?" "He's not wrong often," Noah said. The man's eyes narrowed. "Anyway, keys in a tin can under the front step. Place is all yours." He shoved the paperwork across the table and left in a hurry. Noah looked down at Bravo. "What do you think, buddy?" Bravo whined and pawed at the floor. They drove north, up winding roads through sparse forest and snow-covered farmland, until the narrow gravel path to Little Elk Ridge appeared through the trees. At the end of it stood the house, 2 stories, weather-worn and forgotten, its once white siding now the color of old bones. Bravo leapt out first, sniffing the air as Noah approached the porch, boots crunching on frost-hardened earth. He found the key just where Delmar had said, in a rusted tin under the front step. The lock resisted, but gave way with a metallic groan. Inside, the air was still and dry, the scent of dust and old wood thick. Faded curtains drooped like wilted flowers, and furniture stood beneath moth-eaten sheets, frozen in place like forgotten relics. The house didn't feel empty. It felt suspended. Bravo entered cautiously, sniffing along. Baseboards, tail stiff. Noah wandered through the living room and into the hallway, shining his flashlight up the staircase. The second floor disappeared into gloom. Then Bravo froze. He let out a deep growl, low, warning. Noah followed his gaze. Somewhere above them, a floorboard creaked. Bravo's growl sharpened. He bolted up the stairs, nails clattering against the old wood. "Bravo!" Noah called, heart kicking. He pulled his flashlight and followed. The hallway upstairs was cold and narrow, with old wallpaper peeling in strips. At the far end, a door stood slightly ajar. Bravo was already there, nose pressed to the gap, body tense. Noah stepped forward slowly. "Easy." He pushed the door open. Inside was a small room with bare walls and a broken dresser. Dust swirled in the beam of his flashlight. And then, movement. A figure darted from behind the dresser, scrambling toward the far corner of the room. Bravo barked once, but didn't lunge. Noah raised both hands. "Hey! It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." In the dim light he saw a child, small, maybe 8 years old, crouched low with his arms up like a cornered animal. Dirt stained his face and his clothes hung loose and torn. His hair was matted and his shoes didn't match. The boy stared up at Noah, eyes wide with fear. Noah's voice softened. "It's all right. I just bought this house. I didn't know anyone was here." The boy didn't answer. His chest rose and fell in shallow bursts. One hand gripped the edge of an old backpack like it was a lifeline. Bravo, sensing the fear, sat down slowly. His tail gave a single thump on the floor. Noah knelt. "What's your name, kid?" The boy hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "Eli." Eli didn't speak at first. His thin fingers gripped the frayed strap of his backpack like it held him together, eyes darting between Noah and Bravo as if unsure which one posed the greater threat. Bravo stayed seated, ears relaxed now, his amber eyes warm and steady. It was the kind of gaze that made people lower their guard, and eventually it worked. Noah stayed kneeling, one hand resting on his knee. "You hungry?" Eli hesitated, then gave the faintest nod. "I've got some granola bars in the truck. No raisins. Deal?" Another nod, a little faster. Noah stood slowly. "Come on, then." Eli rose, cautious but curious, and followed them down the stairs. His steps were light, practiced in silence. He moved like someone who had spent too long trying not to be noticed. Outside, the cold bit harder than before, the wind sweeping across the field as the sky darkened toward late afternoon. Snowflakes had begun to fall again, fine and slow. In the patrol SUV, Noah handed over a granola bar and a bottle of water. Eli tore into it like it was the first food he'd seen in days. Noah didn't ask anything else right away. He let the boy eat, let the silence fill with something softer than suspicion. Bravo sat close to Eli, tail sweeping lightly in the dust, his presence calm but protective. Only after Eli had finished and wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve did Noah speak again. "So, you gonna tell me how long you've been living up there?" Eli shifted, then looked up with eyes too old for his age. "Since he left." "Your dad?" A nod. "Where'd he go?" Eli took a shaky breath. "He said he was going to fix the money problem, but he never came back. I thought he would. Then I saw his truck here again last week. I stayed hidden. When I heard him say he sold the house, I came back. I need to find something." "What kind of something?" Eli opened his backpack again. From inside, wrapped in an old hand towel, he pulled out a faded photograph, creased, water-stained, but still intact. It showed a smiling woman in her 30s, curly hair tied back, wearing a nurse's scrubs and holding a much younger Eli in her arms. On the back was a name written in gentle cursive. Amanda Collins. "She's my mom," Eli said, voice trembling. He killed her." Noah's breath caught. He looked closer at the photo, then back to Eli. "You're saying your father, Delmar?" Eli nodded quickly. "He told me it was an accident, that she fell, but I saw it. I was upstairs. He pushed her. They were yelling about the insurance money. She said she didn't want it anymore, that he was doing something wrong." Noah stayed silent, the weight of the boy's words sinking deep. He'd seen enough domestic calls gone bad to know when a child wasn't lying, and there was something in Eli's tone, not panic, but the hardened, quiet pain of someone who had replayed this story too many times alone. "I ran away that night," Eli continued. "I stayed in the woods near the lake. There's an old camper there, but it got too cold. And when I heard he was selling the house, I came back. I thought, maybe I could find something to prove what he did." Noah looked down at Bravo. The dog was still watching the boy, but his posture had changed. Closer now, as if he too understood. "You said you saw him here last week?" Eli nodded. "He was packing papers, talking to someone on the phone. He said the insurance company still wouldn't pay out, that they were looking into it. He sounded mad." Noah's eyes narrowed. "Did you hear who he was talking to?" Eli shook his head. "He didn't say their name, just they're stalling and they're going to ruin everything." Noah leaned back against the side of the SUV, the cold metal biting through his jacket. This was no longer just a case of a kid squatting in an abandoned home. It was something bigger, something darker, and he was in it now. "We'll figure it out," he said finally. Eli looked at him, unsure. "How? He'll come back. He'll hurt me again." "No, he won't," Noah said, firm. "You're not going back to him." A gust of wind blew snow across the porch steps. Bravo stood up suddenly, nose twitching. He trotted back into the house, tail stiff. "What is it, boy?" Noah followed quickly. Inside, Bravo was pawing at the floorboards in the front hallway, right where the wood creaked when they first entered, his nose pressed against a loose board, sniffing rapidly. Noah knelt, pried the board up. Beneath it, tucked into a shallow compartment, was a small cloth pouch and a necklace, silver, tarnished with time but still bearing a pendant, a tiny heart engraved with the name Amanda. Eli gasped. "That was hers." Noah handed it to him carefully. "You're sure?" "She wore it every day. She said it was from her mom." Eli clutched the pendant tightly, eyes wet. "He said he buried her with it. He lied." Noah looked inside the pouch. Inside were several folded papers, old insurance forms, handwritten notes, even a copy of a claim submission. One document was marked with red ink across the top. "Fraud suspicion, under review." "This is what you were looking for?" Noah asked. Eli nodded slowly. "I think this can help." Noah folded the papers carefully and slid them into his coat. "We'll go through them later. For now, let's get you warm." As they stepped back out onto the porch, snow falling heavier now, Eli looked up. "You believe me?" Noah didn't hesitate. "Yeah, kid, I do." Bravo leaned against Eli's side, pressing his warmth into the boy's thin frame. Eli looked down at the dog and whispered, "Thank you." The following morning, the snowfall had softened the landscape into a gentle white hush, burying the rough edges of the world in silence. Noah stood on the porch of the old house with a steaming cup of coffee in hand, watching the sun peek over the ridge. Inside, the air still smelled of old wood and dust, but a fire now crackled in the hearth, giving the space the warmth of something close to living. Eli was curled up in a thick quilt on the worn-out couch. Bravo sprawled beside him, head resting protectively on the boy's legs. The dog had refused to sleep anywhere else that night. It wasn't a command. Bravo had simply chosen his post, as if he already understood the assignment. Noah didn't call social services that morning. He could have. By the book, he should have. But there was something in Eli's eyes, something too familiar to ignore. A mix of hurt and survival. Noah had seen it before in children pulled from chaos, and even in the mirror after certain cases had ended in blood and silence. So instead, he called the station and took another week off, said he needed time to settle things. Nobody asked questions. Around noon, after warming up with toast and eggs, Noah brought Eli outside with Bravo. They had work to do if they were going to stay here even temporarily. The porch steps were sagging, and part of the back fence had collapsed. Noah handed Eli a hammer that was a little too big for him and pointed to a pile of old wood scraps. "We'll start here," he said. "Rebuild a piece at a time." Eli didn't complain. He followed instructions quietly, focused like a boy who knew that being useful might be his ticket to staying. His swings with the hammer were clumsy at first, but each nail he drove came straighter than the last. When his hands began to blister, Noah wrapped them in gauze without scolding. Throughout the afternoon, Bravo trotted between them, checking progress and occasionally nudging Eli with his nose as if approving his work. At one point, Eli giggled softly when the dog licked a smear of peanut butter off his cheek from lunch. That sound, light, unguarded, caught Noah off guard. It had been buried deep inside that kid. The next few days settled into a rhythm. Noah found a small cot and set it up in the corner of the main room. He gave Eli a box of old clothes from his brother's son, sweaters too big, jeans with knees intact, socks that matched. Eli accepted them without a word, pulling them on with care. He still carried his backpack everywhere, never letting it out of sight, even when he slept. Noah never pried. Each morning, Noah would cook, and Eli would help without being asked. They repaired broken shutters, patched insulation near the kitchen, and cleaned out the attic which had become overrun with squirrels at some point. Eli worked hard, focused, and more than once refused to take breaks. He wanted to prove he belonged. One evening, as the sky turned pink over the snow-covered hills, a knock came at the door. Noah opened it to find Deputy Clara Mitchell, a tall woman in her early 40s with deep-set eyes and a confident stance. She wore the standard sheriff's winter uniform, heavy tan coat, badge on her chest, utility belt at her waist, but her knitted scarf and soft-spoken tone set her apart. "Hey, Noah, heard you bought the old Collins place," she said, a brow raised, "and missed the last 2 check-ins. Everything all right?" Clara had worked with Noah for years. She'd transferred from Cheyenne after her divorce and was known for being sharp, direct, and surprisingly kind. Noah stepped out, closing the door slightly behind him. "Yeah, it's a fixer-upper." She studied him for a moment. "Heard a rumor Delmar's boy might have been seen around here. That true?" Noah hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "His name's Eli. He's safe." "Social services know?" "No, not yet." Clara folded her arms, not in judgment but in consideration. "You think he's better off with them or with you?" Noah looked back through the frosted window. Inside, Eli sat by the fire, petting Bravo's ears while the dog lay half asleep in his lap. "With me," he said quietly. Clara nodded. "All right, I didn't see anything." She handed him a folded piece of paper. "This was left in your mailbox at the station. Unmarked. Could be nothing." He opened it. A torn scrap of an insurance form with Amanda Collins' name circled in red. "Fraud investigation. Case reopened," was stamped faintly in the corner. Noah's jaw tightened. "Thanks." Clara glanced toward the window one more time. "Be careful. Delmar's been seen near the state line. If he finds out Eli's with you—" "I'll handle it." She stepped back into the snow. "You always do." After she left, Noah returned inside, paper tucked in his coat. Eli looked up. "Was that someone from the police?" "Just a friend," Noah said. Eli didn't press further. That night Eli had a nightmare. Noah heard him whimper in his sleep, saw Bravo leap up and press against the boy's side, tail wagging softly. Noah walked over, sat beside them. Eli opened his eyes, breathing hard. He used to come in like that, yelling. "You're safe here," Noah said. Eli blinked slowly, then nodded. He looked over at Bravo, who was now licking his hand. "Bravo likes me," he said. "He chose you," Noah replied. "Dogs don't lie." Eli smiled, a real one this time, and laid his head back down. Noah sat there a while longer, watching the boy's breath slow, his body relax. It didn't feel like fostering. It felt like something beginning. Snow still blanketed the hills around the house, softening the sharp edges of broken fences and sagging porches. Inside, the old structure was slowly coming back to life. One nail, one patch of insulation, one repaired hinge at a time. The fire burned strong every evening now, and Eli had stopped wearing his jacket indoors. His face had more color, his laughter more frequency. But beneath that progress, something still flickered in his eyes, a weight he hadn't yet put down. Noah noticed it most during moments of silence, when the hammering stopped or the breakfast dishes were cleared and the house stood still. That's when Eli would drift toward the fireplace, not the working one in the living room, but the sealed, dusty one in the side parlor that hadn't been used in years. He would stare at it without speaking, fingers twitching near his pockets. One afternoon, after repairing a broken door hinge, Noah saw him standing there again. "You keep looking at that fireplace like it's got secrets," he said, setting the screwdriver down. Eli turned slowly. "She used to keep things there. My mom. Stuff she didn't want him to find." Noah wiped his hands on a rag. "You mean like valuables?" Eli shook his head. "No. More like insurance papers, notes. Once, she said she hid a USB drive in the back, said if anything ever happened it would explain things." Noah approached the hearth. The metal grate was rusted shut, and the inside was clogged with ash and soot from years gone by. He knelt, flashlight in hand, and began inspecting around the inner corners. After a few minutes of poking and prying, something clicked. A loose brick. He pulled it free carefully, revealing a small crevice behind it, just wide enough for a small flash drive wrapped in a plastic bag. Noah held it up. "This what she meant?" Eli's eyes widened. "That's it? That's the one." Later that evening, after Eli had gone to bed curled up with Bravo on the cot, Noah plugged the USB into his laptop. It was old. The casing cracked along one side, but it worked. The folder inside was labeled Amanda, just in case. There were 4 audio files. Noah clicked on the first. The recording was faint but clear. Amanda's voice, gentle but trembling. "You said this would be clean, Ellis, that no one would get hurt. You promised." Then Ellis Delmar, voice rising, sharp and furious. "You're the one who wanted out. You said we couldn't afford the house. The job wasn't enough." "I said I wanted to move, not to lie, not to fake life insurance documents." A loud bang, like a fist slamming the wall. Noah leaned closer, heart pounding. The second recording was shorter, Amanda again, whispering. "I don't know how much longer I can stay. I made copies. If something happens to me, someone will find them." The third was corrupted, just static. But the fourth— "You're not leaving," Ellis shouted. "You think they'll believe you over me? I've already filed the claim. If you talk, we lose everything. I'm not staying with a man who puts his own son in the closet because he's afraid he'll talk." Then the sound of a scuffle, a crash, a gasp. The audio ended there. Noah sat back in his chair, the glow from the screen flickering against his face. It wasn't a confession, but it was damn close. Enough to open an official case, at the very least. He transferred the files onto a separate secure drive, locked it in the metal filing box under the floorboard, and went to bed with the weight of responsibility pressing heavier on his chest. The next morning, a knock came at the front door just as the sun started rising. Noah answered cautiously. Standing on the porch was an elderly woman bundled in a long gray coat with a faded floral scarf tied around her neck. She looked to be in her late 70s, with a stooped back and eyes the color of fog. Her hands clutched a folded paper bag. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said softly. "I'm Clara Brighton. I live across the creek. Been here since before Amanda and Ellis moved in." Noah invited her in. She declined the seat, staying near the door. "I heard someone had bought the place. Then I saw a patrol car in the driveway a few days back. Figured I'd come check. I brought bread." He took the bag. It was warm, freshly baked. "Thank you," Noah said. Clara nodded, eyes drifting toward the hallway. "I'm not proud of it," she said, her voice low. "That night, when it happened, I heard something, a loud bang, almost like a gunshot, but I didn't call the police. I was scared." "Did you see anything?" "No, but I heard yelling before, and then silence. The next day, he told people she'd slipped in the barn, fell on the cement. But I saw them. They didn't take her to the hospital, they just buried her fast. Said it was private." Noah frowned. "You knew something was wrong." "I did, but he came to my house after. Said if I stirred up trouble, my name might end up next to hers. I was old, alone. I believed him. Noah looked at her, not with anger, but with understanding. Fear did strange things to people. Is there anything else you remember? Anything at all? Clara hesitated. There was a time Amanda came to me, asked if she could leave Eli with me for the day while she went to talk to someone. I think she meant a lawyer. That was just a week before she died. Noah nodded slowly. Why now? He asked. Why come forward? Clara looked down. Because I saw the boy again, and because I think I owe Amanda more than silence. He thanked her, offered her coffee, but she politely declined. Before leaving, she turned back at the door. Whatever you're doing here, keep going. That boy deserves peace. Noah watched her disappear into the snow-covered trees. Inside, Eli and Bravo were playing tug-of-war with a sock. For a moment, the Taha boy looked like any other kid, laughter filling the air. Noah knew that peace wouldn't come easy, but now at least they had truth. The night was darker than most. Clouds rolled thick over the Wyoming hills, smothering moonlight and throwing the landscape into a dense, uneasy black. The wind had dropped, leaving only a deep silence, broken now and then by the creak of the old house as it settled deeper into winter. Inside, the fire had died to low embers. Eli was curled beneath a thick quilt on the cot, Bravo pressed against his side as usual, both still. Noah sat in the living room armchair, half asleep with an open case file on his lap, its corners curling under the heat of the stove. The laptop on the table still showed the audio files from the USB drive, but the screen had gone to sleep. It was nearly midnight when Bravo stirred. Noah didn't hear the noise at first, just the shift of the dog's body, the way his ears snapped forward and his nose lifted toward the front window. A second later, the low, guttural growl rumbled from his chest. Noah was upright in an instant, hand reaching for the pistol under his coat. He stepped silently to the window and peeled back the edge of the curtain. Movement. A shadow slipped past the fence line, moving low, quick, too fluid to be an animal, too cautious to be anything but human. Noah turned, voice a whisper. "Stay with him," he told Bravo. But Bravo was already in motion, padding silently toward the door. Noah opened it slowly, letting the cold rush in, then slipped out with the dog close behind. The snow had been disturbed. Footprints led from the road to the back of the house, shallow enough to be recent. Noah followed them around the side, flashlight off, gun drawn. Then he saw him. A man crouched near the cellar entrance, prying at the padlock with a crowbar. Noah stepped forward, voice low and firm. "Don't move." The figure froze, then stood slowly, crowbar still in hand. Even in the dark, Noah recognized the wiry frame, the quick, twitchy movements. Ellis Delmar. He turned just enough for Noah to see his face, lined, pale, eyes wild with desperation. He wore a thick black coat with torn cuffs and a knit cap pulled low. His breath came in fast clouds as he took a step back, glancing toward the tree line. "What are you doing here, Ellis?" Noah asked, keeping his aim steady. "Just forgot something," Delmar said. "Something that belongs to me. You don't own this house anymore." Delmar's jaw flexed. "That boy, he's been snooping, hasn't he? Found her things?" Bravo stepped beside Noah, teeth bared now, growl rising. Delmar raised the crowbar. That was all it took. Bravo lunged, jaws clamping onto the man's coat near the forearm and dragging him sideways into the snow. Delmar cried out and swung wildly, missing both man and dog as he fell back onto the frozen ground. "Bravo! Off!" Noah called. The dog released instantly, standing protectively in front of Noah. Delmar scrambled up, limping slightly, coat torn, blood seeping from a shallow wound on his... "You don't know what you're doing," Delmar hissed. "You think they'll believe a kid over me? You think this ends well for you? I have recordings, witnesses, a file full of forged documents. You came back to destroy the rest." Delmar didn't answer. He turned and ran, slipping once in the snow before disappearing into the trees at the edge of the property. Noah didn't chase him. Not yet. He turned to Bravo. "Track him in the morning. Tonight, we stay with the kid." They returned to the house. Eli was awake now, sitting up in the cot, eyes wide and body shaking. The moment Noah entered, the boy's voice cracked. "Was it him?" "Yeah," Noah said. "He tried to break into the cellar." Eli hugged his knees, silent. "He's gone for now, but we've got more proof. Bravo got him good. Ripped his coat open, left a bite. That's evidence." Eli blinked. "He knows you believe me now. He'll try to stop you." "Let him try," Noah said. "He made a mistake coming back. Now it's my case." Bravo returned to Eli's side, nudging him gently until the boy wrapped his arms around the dog's thick neck. Noah stoked the fire back to life and poured hot tea into a chipped mug, handing it to Eli. "We'll call the sheriff in the morning," he said. "Let them know what happened. But tonight, you're safe." Eli didn't respond, but he didn't look away either. Later that night, when Noah checked in before going to bed, Eli was asleep again. Bravo hadn't moved from the boy's side, still lying there like a living shield. In the morning, the tracks would be frozen over, but the proof they needed had already been left behind, in teeth marks, broken locks, and the panic of a man who'd been cornered by truth. The morning sun cracked over the snow-covered ridge, turning the frost-laced trees into blades of glass. A brittle silence hung over Little Elk Ridge, broken only by the crunch of boots and the steady rhythm of paws pressing into snow. Noah moved fast but careful, following Bravo's lead through the tree line behind the house. Bravo, nose low and tail rigid, was locked onto the scent trail Ellis Delmar had left the night before. The storm hadn't come yet, though the clouds rolled thick and low, but time was running short before wind or snow erased the trail completely. Eli had begged to come. Noah said no. He needed to move quick and clean, and deep down, he didn't want Eli anywhere near what he might find. It had been nearly an hour of hiking when Bravo stopped abruptly, ears snapping forward. Ahead, buried behind a curtain of pines, sat an old hunting cabin. The structure leaned to one side like it had taken a punch and never recovered. Moss crept up its base, and 2 boards hung loose near the door. Smoke hadn't come from that chimney in years. Bravo growled. Noah approached slowly, weapon drawn, steps silent. He nudged the door open with the barrel of his pistol. The cabin was empty, but it wasn't abandoned. A small cot with rumpled blankets sat in the corner, still holding the impression of a body. A fire pit in the center held ashes no older than 2 days. There was a lantern, a half-eaten can of beans, and beneath a loose floorboard, Bravo had pawed at it, Noah found a bag. He knelt and pulled it free. Inside was a mess of documents, weathered, some smudged with ash, insurance forms, claims, fake medical records, a forged death certificate for Amanda Collins. There were receipts for life insurance policies taken out under aliases in other counties. Some were printed, others handwritten. It was a paper trail Delmar had clearly intended to destroy. Then Noah found the photographs. Tucked in a manila envelope were 6 printed images, the kind captured by old surveillance systems. One showed Amanda at a lawyer's office. Another, time-stamped 3 days before her death, showed her and Eli leaving a pharmacy. The final 3 were blurry but damning. Delmar in a heated confrontation with Amanda outside the barn. Her face pale, his expression twisted. Noah's hand tightened around the envelope. It wasn't just about money. It was about control. A rustling behind him spun him around, but it was only Bravo, nudging something under the cot. A small notebook, bound in blue cloth. Inside were notes, Amanda's handwriting, dates, appointments, a line that stood out. "If anything happens, tell Clara. Eli's drawings are hidden with the others." Drawings? Noah packed the contents into his backpack and stood, scanning the room one last time. Delmar wasn't far, but he was running scared. That made him dangerous. Back at the house, Eli sat on the living room floor with a stack of old books and broken crayons, flipping through them for clues. Noah hadn't told him everything yet, only that the cabin existed and Delmar had been using it. Eli looked up when Noah entered, snow clinging to his coat. "You found something?" Noah nodded and placed the envelope gently on the table. "More than something." Eli hesitated, then pulled something from under his cot, a small tin box, rusted on one edge. "I remembered this after you left," he said. "It was mine. Mom used to put little drawings in here, said they were for memories, not for now." He opened the lid. Inside were folded papers, child's sketches in crayon, Amanda holding Eli's hand, a treehouse, a barn, and one, drawn in rough lines and shaded with charcoal, showed a woman lying on the floor beside a man with a raised hand. There, written in blue ink beneath the image, was a date. Just 3 days before Amanda's death. Noah leaned in. "She helped you draw this?" Eli nodded slowly. "She said sometimes, pictures say more than words." The paper trembled in Noah's hands. It wasn't hard evidence, but in context, with the audio, the insurance files, the photographs, it was something powerful. A child's memory, preserved by a mother who saw danger coming. "I think she was preparing for this," Noah said. Eli's hands clenched. "Then we have to finish it." Noah looked at him, surprised. "You're not scared?" "I am," Eli said, his voice small but firm. "But if we stop now, she stays gone for nothing." Bravo came over and rested his head in the boy's lap, eyes warm, silent in approval. Noah reached out and placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "All right, partner," he said. "Then we do it together." That night, Noah spread the documents, photos, audio files, and drawings across the kitchen table. The pieces had weight now. The picture was nearly complete. Delmar had written a plan in ink and blood, and it was time to write the ending. The next morning dawned bitter and gray. The skies hung low over Sheridan, pressing down like a warning. Noah packed the evidence into 2 separate folders, one physical, one digital, and locked them in the back of the patrol SUV before loading Bravo into the rear compartment. Eli stood on the porch bundled in layers, watching in silence, one hand resting on the dog's back. Noah crouched beside him. "We're going to the station today. You don't need to come." "I want to," Eli replied, voice calm. "She would have." Noah gave a small nod, then opened the door for him. They drove through snow-lined roads until the brick building of the Sheridan County Sheriff's Office came into view. It was a modest structure with a tall flagpole and a stone sign out front. Inside, the heat hit like a wall, and familiar faces turned to greet Noah with raised brows. At the front desk was Deputy Marcus Beale, a stocky man in his late 30s with a trimmed beard, buzzed hair, and a leather vest under his regulation jacket. A Wyoming native, Marcus was known for being blunt but dependable. His eyes flicked between Noah and Eli as they stepped in. "You've been quiet, Granger," he said. "Something tells me that's about to change." Noah handed him the sealed envelope. "It already has." In the conference room, they laid it all out. The USB recordings, the forged insurance forms, the cabin photographs, Amanda's notes, Eli's drawing, and the ripped coat Delmar had worn when he fled the house. The bite mark Bravo left had torn through the shoulder fabric, leaving blood traces Noah had collected and tagged. Beale whistled low. "This is enough to bury him." "Then let's dig the hole," Noah said. They contacted Sheriff Lorna Garrett, a woman in her early 50s, built lean and tall with a cold stare sharpened by 20 years of watching lies unravel. She wore a heavy charcoal gray coat and kept a silver pin in her collar from her first academy class. She stepped into the room, listened in silence, and asked only one question when Noah finished. "Where is he now?" Noah shook his head. "Gone. But he's running scared. He'll try to leave the state." Sheriff Garrett nodded. "Then we cut off the exits." An alert was issued across the county and state borders. Patrols were dispatched to watch all outbound highways. Delmar's vehicle, a rusted green pickup with mismatched plates, was flagged. By afternoon, a report came in from a ranger post north of the county. A vehicle matching the description had been spotted near a snowed-over mountain pass. Hollow Ridge Trail, a narrow backroad used mostly by hunters and moonshiners. Risky terrain, easy to get lost or disappear. Sheriff Garrett sent Noah, Marcus, and 2 deputies along with Bravo. Eli stayed at the station, under the quiet supervision of Deputy Clara Mitchell, who brought him hot cocoa and let him draw quietly in the break room. The patrol vehicles crawled through the powder-thick trails of Hollow Ridge. Visibility was low, snow already beginning to fall again. After a mile, they spotted the truck, abandoned, its door ajar, tire tracks disappearing into the woods. Bravo leapt out, nose to the snow. He took off into the pines with Noah on his heels, the others flanking from wider angles. The dog led them up a ridge, around a fallen log, and across a shallow, frozen stream. Then Noah saw him, Ellis Delmar, stumbling through the trees in a torn jacket, blood still caked on the shoulder from Bravo's bite. He had a canvas satchel slung across his back and a hunting knife clutched in one hand. "Delmar!" Noah shouted. "Hands where I can see them!" Delmar spun. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken, and the desperation poured from every tense movement. "You think you can take him from me?" he yelled. "He's my son! You lost that right the day you killed his mother." Delmar charged. The knife gleamed. Bravo lunged first. He struck the man mid-charge, teeth locking onto Delmar's wrist. The knife dropped with a dull thud in the snow. They both tumbled, man and dog, until Noah reached them and pinned Delmar to the ground. "Don't move," he growled, wrenching the man's arms behind his back. Marcus arrived moments later and helped secure him in cuffs. Delmar lay panting in the snow. "You don't understand. She was going to leave. Take everything. I did what I had to." Noah stared down at him. "She left everything to protect him, and now he's safe. From you." Bravo sat beside them, tongue out, panting but unharmed. They loaded Delmar into the vehicle and drove back through the darkening trees. At the station, when Eli saw the patrol cars return, he stood in the hallway with wide eyes. Noah stepped out and gave a single nod. Eli didn't speak. He just walked slowly toward Bravo, who knelt down to meet him and buried his face in the dog's fur. Sheriff Garrett watched quietly from the doorway, then turned to Noah. "We'll charge him with second-degree murder, insurance fraud, child endangerment, and attempted assault on an officer. That's a life sentence if the jury hears what I just did." Noah nodded. "He'll hear the rest in court, and so will Eli." Later that night, back at the house, the fire glowed warm in the hearth. Eli sat beside it, a sketchpad on his knees, drawing something new. Bravo dozed at his feet, paws twitching in a dream. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, they had won a kind of peace neither had expected. The courtroom in Sheridan County was small, built more for traffic citations and land disputes than high-profile trials. But on the day of State v. Ellis Delmar, every bench was filled. Snow clung to the boots of ranchers, schoolteachers, and mechanics who had taken the morning off to sit in silent rows behind the prosecution's table. Among them sat Mrs. Clara Brighton, bundled in her long gray coat, hands folded tightly in her lap. At the front, the state seal gleamed behind Judge Henry Mallory, a stern, silver-haired man in his early 60s. A former prosecutor with a reputation for cutting through emotion to get to the bone of the truth, Judge Mallory wore his black robe like armor. He was known for one thing above all. He listened. Noah arrived early with Eli. The boy wore a pressed navy sweater and tan slacks, his hair combed back, though a few strands still curled over his forehead. His shoes scuffed the floor nervously as they entered through a private side door. In one hand, he held Bravo's leash, and the German shepherd walked calmly beside him, outfitted in his official canine vest with a sheriff's badge clipped to the side. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Noah asked as they waited in the hallway. Eli looked up. "You said the truth matters." "It does." "Then I have to say it." They stepped into the courtroom just as the bailiff called the session to order. Ellis Delmar sat at the defense table, wearing an ill-fitting gray suit. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. A public defender, a thin, nervous woman in her 40s named Sharon Kleist, dressed in a wrinkled blazer, sat beside him, shuffling papers without confidence. She had inherited a case no one else wanted and knew full well what the evidence would show. The prosecution was led by Assistant District Attorney Travis Penner, mid-40s, clean-cut, sharp-eyed, and known for his methodical, patient approach. He addressed the court with calm authority, introducing the charges: first-degree murder, insurance fraud, child endangerment, and obstruction. As the trial began, Penner laid out the timeline: Amanda Collins' suspicious death, the insurance claim, the hidden documents, and the forged certificates. The court listened closely as he introduced Exhibit A, the audio files recovered from the USB, and played the recording of Amanda's trembling voice confronting her husband about the fraudulent insurance plan. The courtroom was silent as Delmar's threats played through the speakers, his rage captured forever in a few sharp words and a slammed door. Then came the physical evidence: the forged insurance forms, the altered medical files, the still blood-stained coat with Bravo's bite mark, and the photographs showing Delmar near the barn just days before Amanda's death. And then it was Eli's turn. Noah walked him to the witness stand, one hand gently resting on the boy's shoulder. Eli's voice wavered at first, but the presence of Bravo, sitting just behind him, calm and loyal, gave him strength. With quiet conviction, he told the court what he saw that night: the argument, the shove, his mother's fall, the silence afterward. His words were simple, unembellished. But in their plainness they struck like truth often does: clean, unflinching, undeniable. At one point, Judge Mallory leaned forward slightly, listening more closely. Sharon Kleist attempted a cross-examination, suggesting Eli's memory might be clouded or that the drawings he made were influenced by what others had told him, but it was clear the jury wasn't convinced. After Eli stepped down, he returned to his seat beside Bravo and buried his face in the dog's fur for a long moment. Later that day, Mrs. Clara Brighton was called to testify. Dressed in the same floral scarf she had worn the day she first visited Noah, she admitted through tears that she had heard a loud bang the night Amanda died. She admitted her fear, her guilt, and her silence. "I should have said something," she told the court. "I let fear tell me it wasn't my place, but it was." Penner simply nodded. "And today, I'm here, and I believe that boy." The final blow came with the introduction of the forensic report. The bite on Delmar's shoulder matched the dimensions of Bravo's teeth exactly, and the blood left behind matched Delmar's DNA. The timeline lined up. The flight from the house, the abandoned cabin, the evidence stash, all of it painted a picture that could no longer be ignored. When the jury returned, they were unanimous, guilty on all counts. As the verdict was read, Delmar slumped in his chair. There was no outburst, no reaction, just a dull blankness, like someone realizing the weight of a future they could no longer outrun. Judge Mallory's sentencing was swift. "Ellis Delmar, for the crimes committed against your wife, your son, and this community, I sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole." Outside the courtroom, as the snow began to fall once more, people gathered to shake Noah's hand. Some touched Eli's shoulder gently in support. Others simply nodded. Words weren't always needed. Clara approached last. She knelt beside Eli and took his hands in hers. "I'm sorry I wasn't there before," she said. "You're here now," Eli replied. She smiled. "So are you." That night, as they returned to the house, the warmth inside was different. It wasn't just from the fire. It was from the knowing that the truth had been spoken, heard, and believed. Justice had come, not loud, not easy, but steady. The courthouse steps were quieter now. The storm had passed, not the kind that brought snow, but the kind that tore lives apart and tried to leave silence in its wake. For Eli, the silence no longer felt hollow. It felt like peace. A week after the verdict, Noah sat at his kitchen table with a pen in hand and a thick envelope beside him. The adoption paperwork was complete, at least his part. There were background checks, interviews, home visits scheduled by family services, but that didn't faze him. What mattered was that the process had begun. The application read, Noah Thomas Granger hereby petitions to adopt Eli James Delmar as his legal son. Noah signed the last page, then looked up to see Eli across the room, sitting cross-legged in front of the fireplace, feeding Bravo a piece of toast he'd secretly saved from breakfast. The boy's laughter, light and playful, bounced off the cabin walls. Bravo's tail thumped approvingly. Eli had been smiling more lately, unprompted. Sometimes at the sound of birds outside the window, sometimes when he found his socks already warm by the fire. The shadows under his eyes hadn't disappeared entirely, but they no longer looked like permanent residents, more like ghosts passing through. The house was changing too. Noah and Eli had repainted the hallway together, sun-washed cream instead of faded gray. They repaired the floorboards in the attic and built a small bookshelf under the window, filled it with second-hand books from a town donation box. A patchwork quilt now lay over Eli's bed, stitched with forest patterns and tiny embroidered foxes. Clara Brighton had brought it by, saying it once belonged to her grandson, who was grown now and off in Portland. "We all need something warm to sleep under," she said. Eli hugged her without hesitation. Noah installed a new back door, replaced the broken lock, and carved a small plaque above the frame that read, "Home is who you hold on to." That Saturday, the town hosted its annual Winter Remembrance Service, held in the school auditorium and dedicated to victims of domestic violence. This year, the mayor's office wanted to include survivors too, voices of strength and recovery. Eli had been invited to speak. The request came from Ms. Diane Kessler, a retired teacher in her 70s who now volunteered at the town's Family Support Center. She was small-framed, with white hair always pinned neatly in a bun, and a wardrobe of floral dresses and wool shawls. Diane had taught Amanda in grade school, and when she'd heard the full story, she had wept, then taken action. Eli hesitated when Noah told him. "You don't have to," Noah said gently. "I want to," Eli replied, "but I don't know what to say." "Then say what only you can." On the night of the service, the auditorium was filled. Paper lanterns lined the walls, and candles flickered gently across the stage. Photos of those lost were arranged with care, names, written in looping cursive beside them. When Eli stepped onto the stage, wearing a button shirt and his favorite jacket, the room quieted. He held a note card, but didn't look at it once. "My name is Eli," he began. "Some of you knew my mom. Her name was Amanda. She was kind. She made me laugh when things were hard. She didn't get to leave when she should have, but she tried. She saved me in ways I didn't see until later." He paused. Noah, sitting in the front row beside Bravo, watched as the boy took a breath. "I used to think telling the truth would make everything worse, but it didn't. It made room for something better, like this." He looked down at Bravo, then back at the audience. "I have a home now. I have someone who listens, and a dog who never lets me feel alone. I'm still scared sometimes, but I'm not hiding anymore, and I hope, if anyone here is hiding, they know they don't have to." There were tears. Clara dabbed hers openly. Sheriff Garrett gave a single nod from the back. Ms. Kessler smiled so wide her shoulders lifted. When Eli returned to his seat, Noah reached over and took his hand. "You proud of yourself?" he asked. Eli shrugged, grinning. "Kinda." That night, back at the house, they lit a lantern for Amanda and let it drift up into the cold sky. Eli watched it until it became a pinprick of light among the stars. "Do you think she'd be proud?" he asked. "I think she already is," Noah said. They stood there in silence, shoulder to shoulder, Bravo resting between them like a guardian of the moment. It wasn't official yet, not on paper, but in every way that mattered, they were already family. Spring came gently to the outskirts of Cheyenne, Wyoming. The snow receded like a sigh, leaving behind softened earth, tender shoots of green, and skies that no longer held their breath. For the first time in years, the breeze that slipped through the valley wasn't bitter or biting. It was warm, and it carried promise. The house that once leaned with the weight of neglect now stood upright and proud. its chipped blue shutters repainted the color of cornflowers, and its porch wrapped in morning light. Where moss had clung stubbornly, ivy now climbed with purpose. The front yard, once overgrown and tired, had been raked clean and seeded with wildflowers. From the edge of the tall grass, laughter echoed. Eli, barefoot and flushed with joy, darted through the field behind the house, his arms spread wide like wings. Bravo chased after him, ears perked, tail a blur, never straying too far. Every few steps, Eli would glance back, shout something unintelligible, and Bravo would bark as if in reply. Noah Granger sat on the porch steps with a mug of coffee in hand. He was wearing a flannel shirt and worn jeans, boots unlaced and dusted with earth. His eyes, always alert during his patrol years, now carried the softness of someone at rest. The creases in his face had shifted, from wary lines of duty to relaxed grooves of contentment. Inside the house, sunlight spilled through the windows and danced across wooden floors. The living room was cozy, lived in. A shelf of books stood beside the old stone fireplace. A pair of worn boots rested near the door. On the wall above the mantel hung a framed photograph. Noah kneeling in the snow beside Eli, with Bravo pressed between them, all three faces turned toward the camera. Beneath the image were the words painted in hand-brushed lettering. Family isn't blood. It's who stands by you. Noah had added it himself the night after the adoption was finalized. The papers arrived just before the thaw. No lawyers, no dramatics. Just a quiet visit from a social worker named Tina Morales, a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes, a warm laugh, and a way of speaking to children that made them feel seen. She wore her dark hair in a low braid and always carried a thermos of mint tea. Tina had visited the home 3 times before. On the final visit, she sat with Eli at the kitchen table and showed him the stamped approval. "This makes it official," she said, "but it's clear this home was already yours." Eli asked if Bravo had to sign too. Tina laughed and let him press the dog's paw onto a blank sheet of paper, then tucked it into her folder for backup documentation. Today, the official part was behind them. What remained was simply life. Eli burst back onto the porch with grass on his knees and a dandelion crown crooked on his head. He held something cupped in his hands. "Look," he said, breathless. "A baby bird. It fell from the tree." Noah leaned forward as Eli gently opened his palms. A tiny, brown-feathered bird blinked up at them, dazed but unharmed. "Let's build it a nest box," Eli said, already bouncing on his heels. So they did. They spent the afternoon sawing scrapwood in the shed behind the house. Noah guided Eli's hands as they hammered the nails, while Bravo lay sprawled nearby, occasionally tilting his head with curiosity at the boy's commentary. "You think it'll like it here?" Eli asked, examining their finished box. "It already does," Noah replied. Later, as dusk colored the sky in pinks and soft blues, they sat on the porch again, tired and content. The bird rested in its new home nestled on the low branch of the backyard oak. Fireflies began to blink into view, like scattered wishes made visible. Eli leaned his head against Noah's shoulder, and Bravo curled at their feet. "I used to think homes were just walls," Eli said quietly, "like cages." "And now?" Noah asked. "Now I think they're more like hearts. They beat when people care." Noah looked down at the boy, his son now, not by blood, but by every other measure, and placed a gentle hand on his back. "That's exactly right." They sat there until the stars came out, not needing to say anything more. The old $20 house had once held secrets and pain. Now it held warmth, laughter, and the simple rituals of healing. Every creaky floorboard and patched wall was part of their story. A place no longer haunted, but alive. The first spring had arrived, and with it, a family reborn. Sometimes the greatest miracles come not through lightning bolts or parted seas, but through quiet acts of love, bravery, and second chances. A boy who once hid in an attic, afraid and forgotten, now runs free through wildflowers beside a dog that never gave up on him and a man who chose to be his father, not by blood, but by grace. This story reminds us that family can be found in the most unexpected places, and that healing begins the moment someone dares to care. Perhaps it was not just chance that led Officer Noah to that house. Perhaps it was something higher, a whisper from God that said, "Go, there is someone waiting to be saved." In our daily lives, we pass by broken homes, lonely hearts, and silent prayers. What if we were the answer someone is waiting for? What if your kindness becomes someone else's miracle? If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in hope. Leave a comment below and type Amen. If you believe God still sends angels in the form of people and dogs. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us we are never truly alone. And may God bless you and your loved ones, wherever you are, with love, healing, and the miracle of belonging.